At the moment I'm talking about faith, but I'm trying to reveal faith in a way that I don't hear preachers talking about it. And already I've been looking at various scriptures, obviously from Hebrews and from James and from 1 Peter. But I somehow became very moved by something that I was reading. And what I discovered is that some of the greatest illustrations of faith are not just in the New Testament, but they're in the Old Testament. And this is one reason why it says, Paul says, you're compassed around with a great cloud of witnesses. I'm going to tell you how big that cloud was sometimes. Anyway, I'm turning you to the book of Numbers, and I'm going to be dealing mainly with chapters 13, 14, and possibly getting into 15. And because to me, this always was an enormous challenge in faith, I'm looking about the story of the 12 spies who were sent out by Moses into the promised land while the children of Israel were still in the wilderness. Now it's taken them over a year to get to this place, and now the command of the Lord is to pick a representative, and it had to be a senior representative from each of the 12 tribes, and that they should go and see for themselves what the future was. Now, in one sense, this is quite a remarkable thing, because in actual fact, the spies were sent out to see the future. I find this very interesting. Anyway, let me continue. So in chapter 13, Numbers 13 and verse 21, these 12 men, and they were told in verse 18 to see the land and the people, and whether they're strong or weak, to see whether the land is good or bad, what cities are, whether the people are in tents or in cities, and what the land is like, whether it's good or bad, and so on. And yet, in the final part of verse 20, before I start to really speak, it says, "And be of good courage, and bring of the fruit of the land." And it was the time of the first fruit of the grapes. So verse 21, this is where we're really starting. They went up and searched the land, from the wilderness of Sin to Rehob, and they covered the whole thing. They went to the south, they came to Hebron, where the children of Anak were, and Hebron was built 7 years earlier than Zon in Egypt, so it's quite old. And of course, Hebron is very important nowadays to Jewish people. They came to the brook Eshcol, cut down the branch with the grapes, and they went to the whole. It actually says they went to the wilderness of Paran, and they even went into the hill country, and as far as the sea, the Mediterranean. So they were in the mountains, and they went as far to where the Canaanites dwell by the sea and the coast of Jordan. Right. So now, when they had seen it, in verse 26, verse 25, they returned from searching the land after 40 days. And they came to Moses and Aaron and to the whole congregation of the children of Israel. Now, it's quite important to note that they came back and spoke to the whole congregation. I like that word because it resonates today. And to the children of Israel and so on. And they spoke and they said, "We came into the land, and surely, exactly, it flows with milk and honey, and here is the evidence of it." But in verse 28, they said, "Nevertheless, the people are strong that dwell in the land. The cities are walled and very great. And we saw the children of Anak." These were giants. And it's quite interesting, but I'm not going to deal with that. There were giants. And it says they went and they saw everything. And in verse 30, Caleb stilled the people and said, in front of Moses, and said, let us go up at once and possess it, for we're well able to overcome it. But the people, the men that went up with him in verse 31, said, we're not able to do this. We can't overcome the people, for they are stronger than we are. And they brought an evil report of the land which they'd searched out. And they're saying the land through which we search is a land that eats up the inhabitants thereof. And all the people we saw are men of a great stature. We saw giants, sons of Anak, and we were like grasshoppers in their sight. So the recommendation to the congregation is, don't go up. It's too much of a struggle. We can't succeed. Don't go. And in the first verse of chapter 14, the congregation lifted up their voice. They cried and they wept all night.